the things is I really enjoy going to networking meetings. I used to enjoy it all the time. It was a fun way to get out there and get to know other fellow business owners. And it was kind of fun, you know? It was like, okay, we're talking business, we're exchanging ideas and those types of things. And a few years back, I was in one of these networking groups and somebody was doing their 30-second commercial. And bless his little heart, afterwards he came up to me and he said, you know, I just feel like I'm not getting referrals. I'm not getting anybody from these referrals. I stand up every week and I talk and I don't seem to be able to connect with anybody. And I felt like it was a great spot for me to jump in because, I mean, he's asking, right? So if you're asking, you want to know the truth. And I think internally, when we ask questions, it's sort of been my philosophy that if you're asking the question, you kind of know the answer. We're really just typically asking for confirmation. And so I said to him, one of the problems, well, you have a couple of problems, but number one problem is you are not telling your story. You have a story as a business. All of us have a specific story, our origin story, the reason that we are doing and running our business, why we're selling the products that we're selling, why we're offering the things that we're offering. That is specific to us. Now, there might be other people in our industry who have similar products and services and offerings, but they don't do it in the way you do it. Their story isn't yours. There are differences, all right? And this used to come up all the time. I have a really good friend of mine, and you're never really a designer for long these days. We were both designers back in the day, and we were talking, and one of the reasons that we're really good friends is because we approach design in completely different ways. Yes, we are designers, but we are not the same designers. I approach typesetting and color. I'm a much more contrasty, bold colors, very 70s, sans serif fonts, and her clientele tends to be a little bit more feminine. So she tends to go with more purples and those kinds of colors, and tends to be like, so our consumers are never going to cross over. My consumer is not her consumer is not. You see where I'm going with it. And our consumers know that from telling our stories. And that was this guy's problem number one. Let's call him Tom, all right? Call everybody Tom. But let's call him Tom. Tom just wasn't telling his story, and he had a great story to tell. It was a family-owned business that had been around for generations, and nobody knew that because he wasn't telling it, okay? That was problem number one. Problem number two was the story that he was telling didn't give a lot of details. He left a lot up to the listener to figure out, so to speak, all right? He made a lot of assumptions. He assumed that you knew what he did. Again, not all businesses are the same. Just because I've had an experience with someone in your industry doesn't mean that experience is indicative of everybody in the industry. What if I had a bad experience with somebody in your industry? That doesn't translate to you, but by not telling me how you're different from that person, all I have left are my personal assumptions, my perceptions, my expectations based on my previous experiences. So one of the things that you're doing with your story is you're breaking down misunderstandings, misperceptions. You're creating new expectations. You might be overlaying old expectations. They may have had a bad experience with somebody in your industry. You show them we're not all alike. We don't all do those types of things. Like in my industry, there was a problem for a while with people taking deposits and running off, and that was a huge problem, a huge hurdle I had to overcome in converting consumers. And that is the problem, that the greatest sales story never told is the one you're not telling. And you need to tell your sales story. And it's pretty easy to do. People really are craving a good story. They really want to know a genuine connection with you, your products, your services, and your offerings, and you just need to give it to them. It's really that simple.